Welcome everyone. It's great to see so many folks here. Hopefully we can continue to do these events over and over again. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask some questions, and we're going to have this side of the room, who has more birthdays, discuss their views, and then this side of the room, who have fewer birthdays, and have grown up in a different time, right? I mean, you are now old enough to have seen a couple of generations and have seen this world change in ways that no one could have imagined. Is it too loud? I'm hearing too loud. Okay. So you've seen the world change in ways that no one could have imagined. And we're really going to be talking a little bit about those amazing changes and how the world has changed and how you guys have seen the world in your history and your past and in your present today. And then how people who are largely in their 20s now are experiencing the same world, and how our views and attitudes have changed. So we're going to start with a couple of questions, and we're going to go through these questions. And I want to sort of stay on topic, but I also want us to have a little bit of space to explore related ideas and issues. And also, I think if someone out here has a really interesting question that they want to introduce to the conversation, please just raise your hand, somehow catch our eye, so we can bring that into the conversation. Fair enough? Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, so we're going to start with something pretty straightforward, but something that, in fact, when you think about it, has changed quite a lot. So the first question I have, what types of movies did you and do you continue to enjoy watching? What types of movies were you excited to go watch when you were younger? And maybe what types of movies did you stand in line for that were really popular, that everyone was clamoring to go see? So I'm going to start asking, does anyone want to answer that question down here? Okay, well, let's start down here.
I skipped school for many reasons. Number one, I want to say, I can't think of his name. Frank Sinatra, when he was in Boston. And I said, he's more important than school. And I pretended I was sick, but I got caught. And I didn't care. Frankie's number one in my book.
Frank Sinatra.
It's funny that she mentioned.
How many people out there were big fans?
Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
In fact, it's funny that she mentioned that, because when he was at the RKO in Boston, of course I played hooky to see him. And the truant officer, I guess, we were standing outside waiting to go in. I'll never forget it. Something you forget, this I don't. And she came up to me and she said, if I had known that, I would have gone like this to her. She said, I didn't know that Jewish girls played hooky. And I was so taken aback, you know, and she just walked away. And I remember crying and going home and telling my parents, how dare she say that to me, but, you know.
I'm a romanticist at heart, I guess, because I always love love stories, and I continue to do so. And it seems like every movie that I watch on TV that I think is great, I'm taping. So I have a whole bunch of Valentine and Christmas and so on. I do love them. I like a good detective story too, and we had a lot of that in my day. The most important thing that I remember about movies when I was younger was the musicals, which we don't have anymore. And I loved every single one of them.
Well, I can tell you about the silent movie days. When a relative of mine played the piano for the silent movie days because there was no talking. And the same man, whose name was Sam, was a wrestler at the carnivals. When the carnivals come in and they had the volunteers who wrestled, Sam wrestled anybody who would wrestle with him. He was also, the same man was a garage mechanic, and he owned a gas station. Yeah, he was my sister-in-law's brother, Sam. Yeah, the silent movie days, we had a movie house that was half a block away from us, and it was very expensive. It was like 10 cents to get in, and for the 10 cents you got a dish, and my mother would send me to the movie to get, if they were giving out the dish that she needed to fill the set. I could go on and on, but
So I haven't been to silent movies, but I had the pleasure of being exposed to the golden age of Hollywood as a child. My mother was a huge Errol Flynn fan, and you know, one of my favorite movies is They Died with Their Boots On, and I recently found it on Netflix, and it gave me an opportunity to read about the history of Errol Flynn, and I believe her name was Olivia de Havilland, and I just had a really good appreciation for really a lost age in film. So.
I am a true Disney fan, and I also really enjoy the remakes of these movies, as well as the comic books, any sort of Batman, Superman, that kind of thing. And when I tell my parents about it, they're like, "Oh, it's just another remake." But I love it. I love when they revamped it. Yeah, and I when you talk about going to see the movies, I also am thinking how much movies have changed now. The price. Yeah, the concession stands, but even just the chairs. Like now you can have a full table as if you're sitting at a restaurant and people come to you to give you meals. So it's really changed a lot.
Sure has.
Yeah, I would go off of that and say I haven't really stood in line and anticipated a movie in quite a long time, mostly because of how expensive movies are. So I think we missed out on that because now most of us wait for the DVD or Redbox or Netflix. And so we don't, at least for me, I don't really get to go out and get excited for that opening night and stand in line. So I think that's a part we're missing.
So what was the cost of a movie ticket when you guys were kids?
5 cents.
10 cents, 5 cents?
What did you say?
The cost of a movie ticket?
10 cents.
10 cents. All right.
Once a week. The cereal came on a Saturday or once a week, 10 cents.
10 cents.
And you had to wait a whole week to find out who killed who. 10 cents.
I would like to mention the outdoor movie.
Oh yeah.
Well, the couples took their, I went out to make out at and watch the movie at the same time.
So that is a perfect segue to the next question, which is, what is it, as you just mentioned, that's associated with movies? Dating, right? Romance.
Yeah.
Now that's sort of how I see things. So the next question we have is, what was your dating experience like? What were some of the rules and some of the expectations around dating? And if we switched time, so if you guys imagine yourself dating today, and you guys imagine yourself dating back when, what would it be like? How would it be different? Would you like it more or less? So let's have you guys answer that.
I think that personally, I don't think I would like the dating scene today. When we dated in my day, we went to school, or a friend fixed you up and you had a wonderful time. It was easygoing. There were, we didn't have drugs. Alcohol wasn't part of our young lives, so that we didn't have any of the problems that I think you people are faced now.
She's right as far as the dances were concerned. It's where I met my wife, Miriam, and we kind of hooked up for married for 71 years, which I think in this building here is a record. I don't know if people today last that long, but we had a really great marriage for 71 years because I was married to an angel.
We used to go to Sydney Hill Country Club every weekend, Friday night. I said goodbye. I'll be home around 1, maybe. My mother said, you better get home by 12 o'clock or else the doors will be locked. I said, okay, Mom. but I didn't.
How involved were your parents in your selection?
My parents also were very, very involved as to who I was going out with. And they wanted to make sure that the person that I was going out with, very honorable, and was going to do the right thing for me. And of course, in those days, as you said, Molly, we had curfews. You're supposed to be in by a certain time.
You had to be home.
And you really stuck to it pretty much. But I do remember one time when we really had trouble with the car. I mean, really, we did. It wasn't an excuse. And I had a very hard time convincing my mom and dad that that's why I got home so late. We did not have phones, of course. So my father and mother really wondered, really, was there a problem with that car? I'll never forget that as long as I live.
Well, with me, my parents fell in love with my wife just as I did. And I left her for 3 years. I was a World War II veteran and spent 3 years in Africa and Italy. And she waited for me. Of course, her father wouldn't let her go anywhere because you're a married woman and you can't go anywhere. So she wasn't able to go to anywhere, USO or anything.
All right, well, let's hear from the students now about aging.
I think it's an interesting topic because when I was in high school and college, online dating wasn't around. So, my dates, I met girls through school, through friends. I totally appreciate how the online dating scene could seem so, just so different and kind of weird. But at the same time, it's hard for me to criticize it because I met my wife on online dating. So I think at the same time, a lot of my friends have had more traditional ways of meeting their wives and girlfriends. So I think that both still exist. I think online dating is obviously more popular.
But I do think dating right now is very, very hard, especially with trying to find a partner, and people just don't seem to be as approachable in person. And also, what a lot of my friends tell me is that they feel this pressure to sort of put out very early on in dating, otherwise the man just sort of moves on to another girl. So, and then it's sort of like it's not very comfortable or easy to have the talk to go steady in your terms, and that's sort of like later on. So it's you just never know where you stand, and so it's very confusing. I'm not sure if I think I would like to try out dating in your guys' times. But I wonder what it would be like to be a woman and asking a man out, and if that's not okay.
We didn't do that.
Oh, I might have a problem then.
We did not do that.
So I would say my dating experience is maybe a little bit different than my friends. So I actually met my partner in high school and we've been dating for like 9 years. So I never really got to experience like the online dating scene, but I've heard the horror stories from all of my friends, so I'm kind of fortunate that I missed out on that part. And I've heard the stories of how difficult dating is now. So
we didn't live anywhere else. We didn't live apart. So that when we were getting married, we were going from one home to another. There was no in between there. And there was no living with somebody that you weren't going, that you were, going to marry. You didn't do that until you were married. So there's quite a lot of differences here. Really.
Our dating experience is a lot different than many people here. I was widowed about 25 years ago, and I've been single ever since. I've dated quite a bit. Not anymore, but I've kind of gone through that. But it's quite interesting because you go through this whole process, and the process has changed so much since I started dating again. This was back in 1990. And now I also, I'm not now, but I was dating through the internet, meeting people that way. And generally, if I did hook up with someone, it was a kind of a monogamous relationship. You kind of, I think when you reach a certain age, you realize it just doesn't work to play the field anymore. So, you know, if you think you've got a connection, you want to kind of hold on to it or see where it's going to go. So that's been my experience.
I think we could have gone on for another hour with that previous question. If you could come up with a message, what do you want us, that is, the folks here, to hear? And what would you guys feel comforted or want to hear from us?
I don't know if it's called wisdom or just living longer, but what I have seen now, that the world is totally different than the world that we knew and that we grew up in. I feel as though you have a tumultuous life, so to speak. You don't have the innocence of having no war and growing up in a nice, what we call, good world. It's really, I really feel sorry for the way that you people have to see the world, because we have become a very violent society. In my growing up years, we were not. We didn't have that. And if we did, it was, you know, one time and you'd read about it in the paper, but it wouldn't be an everyday occurrence. We never had children going to school with guns. We never knew from that.
Part of what I'm hearing is that while you're speaking very compassionately, there's a general sense that these folks have it worse in some ways, that you sort of prefer the way that it was in your time.
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Okay, so maybe before we jump to the students, a sense of what you think is better now, what you think you wish, or what you wish you had in the past.
Yes. Oh, very much that women today.
Excuse me. I think the biggest difference now, and I wish in some ways I was living now in this instance, but the women today have come up as smart and as fabulous as any man can. They can handle a job just as good as any guy can. And we didn't have that opportunities in our day.
There's definitely been some positives in our generation, especially with social changes. But at the same time, there's been some negatives. When I look back at positives from earlier generations, you know, my grandparents they bought their house in, you know, when they were like 23, 24. That house probably cost 25 grand. My parents own it today, and it's worth like almost $500,000, and it's a modest house. And I think you look back at today, it's challenging because things are more expensive. The community I grew up in, which I do love, I couldn't live there. It's priced out. And that's one of those changes that is tough.
So I was really thinking long and hard about this question, and the answer that I have is a message I want to give to all of you, and I wrote it down because I don't think I could articulate as well, sort of on the spot. I admire your courage to have lived such a long life. Despite everything that life has thrown at you, you are still here today. You represent to me as an entity that is full of life, history, and stories. I wish to let you know that I see you, each and every one of you. You are not invisible to me, and I hope to bridge this gap that our youth-focused society has seemingly placed between us.
Good, that's very good. That's lovely.
Okay, well, it's hard to follow up that. So. No, sorry. Yeah, so I guess I just wanted to say I also had more of a message than a comparison, but I do feel like sometimes our generation gets a bad rap for being self-entitled in this fast-paced society that we live in now. But I had a huge part of my upbringing was through my grandparents and my great-grandparents, so I definitely appreciate all of the hard work and the effort and the struggles that everybody, all the generations before us went through to let us have a more open life and a more fast-paced life. So I know it can seem sometimes like our generation feels like maybe entitled and self-focused, but there are lots of us who are around who really do appreciate everything that you guys did for us.